As the Los Angeles police have been attacked with fireworks, rocks, Molotov cocktails, mainstream media still claims that these protests are mostly peaceful. Let's take a look and see what that looks like. It's pretty insane. Here we go. Los Angeles Police Chief Jim McDonnell and department leaders held a press conference last night, to update the public on the ongoing clash between law enforcement, ICE, and police and anti-ICE protesters downtown. Now, one of my earlier podcasts was kind of who the main group is behind this, along with our typical Antifa, disgruntled, whatever folks that are being paid by left-wing NGOs, and we all know it. But it's Union del Barrio was kind of the big communist group out of Mexico that's behind this series, and they've basically taken over the spot for Black Lives Matter. Because when Black Lives Matter just got ditched to the side by Democrats, somebody else had to kind of flow on in, and they are more conducive. A Mexican communist group is more conducive to the whole ICE ideology than Black Lives Matter. So, officials said that since Saturday, at least 39 people have been arrested by LAPD, with officers from California Highway Patrol arresting an additional 17 people. I say the more the merrier. Arrest them all. Arrest them all. Among the arrests, one man was taken into custody for allegedly throwing a Molotov cocktail, ramming a police skirmish line. Among the mayhem, protesters on an overpass tossed rocks. You've seen footage of that. I'm not going to focus on the footage because you've probably seen it. Just they're chipping off pieces of concrete, dropping it on cars, scooters and other items at police cars, throwing scooters. You'll see scooters down near the police cars, and you've got these overpasses. They're literally throwing scooters down. But mainstream media is saying, it's mostly peaceful. It was a mostly peaceful protest. This isn't peaceful. It's not peaceful. Then the other piece to this is Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass saying that Trump sending in National Guard is a massive overreaction. Well, if you don't have the situation under control, somebody needs to take control. Sure ain't going to be podcaster Newsom or Karen Bass. Neither one of those folks are really capable of doing much of anything other than running their mouths, which they're doing. I mean, Newsom is saying, I'm going to sue the Trump administration. What's that going to do? Why don't you get your city under control in your state and work it out from there? Police and several individuals were shooting commercial-grade fireworks at officers. Yeah, we saw that last night. Some big stuff, some big booms, right? That can kill you, Chief McDonnell said. We've adapted our tactics to be able to have a chance to be able to take these people into custody and to hold them accountable. As you should. Arrest them, convict them, put them in jail, put them in prison, where they belong. That's not happening. This is LA. They're just going to be right back on the streets. Some NGO is going to pay their bail bond money, George Soros money. McDonnell, who said the department currently has limited interaction with federalized National Guard troops, admitted that officers were overwhelmed with the number of people causing mayhem. And you know what? I think Trump learned his lesson. Trump was tempted, both in Portland and in Seattle, to send in the National Guard. And at the time, I said, I don't think you need to. We were also kind of towards the end of the whole Chop Chaz thing, and things were kind of winding down. But it could have gone the other way. And I think these riots, these very violent, exceptionally violent riots, which is what they are, which is what we're calling them, they could go just scorched earth, right? And from that standpoint, I don't have a problem with Trump calling in the feds, calling in the National Guard. Just don't. I think that's the right call. Just let's get to this before it becomes something just crazy where a whole bunch of people die. They'll take a backpack, and the backpack will have a cinder block in it. They'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to throw at officers, to throw at cars and other people. And that is what Democrats and that is what the far left want to ignore because it's terrible, terrible, terrible optics. And for podcaster Newsom and Karen Bass, who already have some horrific optics, especially Karen Bass. I was in Ghana when the wildfires happened, right? I was trying to get back on a plane. And podcaster Newsom, I mean, that guy's just going 100 different directions. None of them have optics that are going to actually help him accomplish what he wants to. He wants to become president of the United States. And he's got so many things working against him. This is one more nail in the coffin, which is how he is handling this extreme violence. Not very well. He's blaming Trump. Well, he didn't have to send him here. This is incendiary. Asked about his feelings towards working with the National Guard, McDonnell, chief of police for LA, said the department would have gone through more steps, including requests for mutual aid from the sheriff's department and other agencies before asking for deployment of the guard. And Trump basically said, nope, send in the National Guard. We're doing it. Boom, done. And I think that's the right call in this case. Do we need them? Look at tonight. This has gotten out of control. And you know what? I was watching a lot of footage last night, and I'm like, okay, so where is the point at which local police department and sheriff's department, where do you identify things as being out of control? So I reached out to a man in blue, years of experience, and asked, does LA police and sheriff's department, LA County Sheriff's Department, do they have control of the situation? And the man in blue said, well, if you've got a car that's on fire and cops are being pelted with rocks from lunatics, over on the overpass, and, a bunch of other violent incidents are happening, that isn't under control. I was like, yeah, okay, that's what I thought. That makes absolute sense. And it's true. If you've got police cars being absolutely thrashed, I mean, you've seen some big chunks of concrete being thrown through windows. That is not peaceful, and that is not under control. Period. This is not, right? Chief McDonnell reiterated that the LAPD does not participate in federal immigration enforcement. They don't do anything with ICE. Okay, that makes sense. You keep, they're here to keep the streets of, and cops are here to keep the streets of LA clean, and ICE is there to keep the borders clean, right? Get the bad guys out, get the criminal illegals out. Nor does it provide any information to federal authorities. Yep, don't care. I can't stress this enough for the people in our community who have high levels of anxiety about this issue. We want everybody to be able to call LAPD in time of need or when they've been the witness to a crime. We need that. Otherwise, the system does not work. McDonnell also went out of his way to express gratitude to people who have engaged in peaceful demonstrations. He's got to say that. He's the chief of police. He's going to have to, it's going to have to suck some what. That's what I'm going to say. It's not what I really mean. Spin cycle. This is Daily Wire. The mostly peaceful riots. I mean, I use mostly peaceful for so many things because it's so ridiculous. When you've got visions like this, big fire, lighting something up, just something going, and you try and tell the American public, yeah, but it's mostly peaceful. You look like an idiot. You look like a moron. The optics are terrible. So you've got a fire here, and you're telling me it's mostly peaceful, and you've got your, a sheriff? Wearing a gas mask because they're going to throw gas, because they need to quell the unruly mob of lefties hell-bent on burning LA down. And you had a bunch of looting last night as well. Looting! Oh, that's nice. You're going to loot your own neighborhood, loot your own stores. That's a classy move. We're having an administration that's targeting peaceful protests. People are there to protest. Good. Democrats and media talking heads spent Sunday morning attempting to downplay the violence. Isn't that what we saw at Chop and Chaz in Summer of Love 2020? It was the Summer of Love until 2 black kids were murdered at a Black Lives Matter event. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. Can't really connect those. Those just don't work, do they? Downplay the violence and vandalism on display in LA, forcing Republican guests to defend President Donald Trump's decision to call in the National Guard. I don't think he needs to defend anything. Get him in there. Can't hurt, right? Can't hurt. Even though Newsom and Karen Bass are saying, you're inciting this. You're making this. No, this has happened this is what your left-wing folks want to have happen. For those that didn't spend their Sunday morning glued to the TV and their Sunday afternoons attempting to dig through a week's worth of network and cable news media spin, Daily Wire has compiled in short summary what you may have missed. On ABC News this week, it was noted the National Guard typically would deploy at the direction of the governor of a particular state, and that Trump's move to deploy them over the objections of Governor Gavin Newsom was something that had only happened a handful of times in the past. So you've got news organization after news organization after news organization basically saying, it's not that bad. People are exercising their freedom of speech. And you're left with this notion of, this is nonsense. This is just craziness. And here we go. LA chief contradicts Newsom and Bass and Schiff. Violence is escalating. Violence is getting worse, is what the chief of police is saying. And mainstream media is just basically saying, it's still mostly peaceful. Violence from protesters involved in a pro-migration, foreign flag waving riots in LA is escalating. Los Angeles Chief of Police Jim McDonnell revealed during a press conference. So it's getting worse, but mainstream media wants to tell us, it's still mostly peaceful. It's mostly peaceful. So that they can demonize Trump for sending in the National Guard. I mean, pretty basic stuff, right? Kill ICE. How about that? Kill ICE. Kill a federal agent. Foreign flags and fires sweep LA as riots erupt against immigration enforcement. The violent targeting of law enforcement in LA by lawless protesters is despicable, Homeland Security said in a post. Yeah, this is what happens when you get a bunch of far lefties together and you get them all worked up and, they do a bunch of this stuff. Look at this, just on fire, literally on fire, cinder blocks. Had somebody tell me that it's not shocking. A pallet of cinder blocks and a pallet of bricks were delivered somewhere to LA. I mean, we heard about that in Seattle. It's, it would make absolute sense, wouldn't it? LA and surrounding areas have exploded in riots as anti-immigration enforcement demonstrators, many touting foreign flags, Mexico, set fires and attacked federal officials. And then mainstream media was left to clean it up as, well, it's mostly peaceful. And I'm sure you've seen those reports. I mean, it is such a stretch. It is such a far cry from reality, which is, I was watching last night a live stream happening late at night. I was at 11 o'clock, something like that last night. And there's a whole bunch of flashbangs going on. And at night, those are like, wow, that is some boom. I mean, it's war. It's warfare. And then for the mainstream media to basically say, but they're still mostly peaceful, aside from the kill ICE and, all of this absolute violent insanity. Department of Homeland Security posted a video to social media on Saturday displaying some of the scenes from LA riots. Chaotic scenes from the riots are overlaid with remarks from LA Mayor Karen Bass, accusing federal immigration officials of sowing a sense of terror by arresting illegal aliens. So criminals are being arrested by law enforcement, and somehow that is law enforcement instilling a sense of terror by doing their jobs. Make that make sense to me. This is why leadership in LA is so terrible. That's why you have a thing like the wildfires happen, and you've got leadership pointing the finger at anybody but taking responsibility for themselves. How about Karen Bass and podcaster Newsom just didn't take care of business when these riots came up? Could you imagine Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, just letting this happen? Just, it's okay. We love a good protest. Besides, they're mostly peaceful. He dropped the hammer. Do you imagine governor of Oklahoma just allowing this to happen? That guy would be over the top. He'd be all over it. Some of the scenes for the video show graphic graffiti messages such as F ICE next to a symbol for Antifa. Yep, we've seen that one. Death to colonialist domination. Death to America with 2 Ks. And dead cops with the smiley face drawn into the O's in the cops. I mean, but they're still mostly peaceful, right? Aren't they mostly peaceful? This is a political spin at its best, right? Political spin. Let's hear Mayor Karen Bass, who was in Ghana during the wildfires.
Outrage that this has happened. Of course, what happened here, I think, was probably the worst. There were a number of locations where ICE raided today. And, to me, when these things happen, it sows a sense of terror in the community. It's bad enough that it happened at this location, but the way this goes and spreads throughout the community, then people are not sure where they're safe.
You mean because Antifa and, the Mexican national groups that are hell-bent on communism? So when those folks come in and do this kind of violent protest, the community is upset? Oh, sorry. You were trying to convince us that what ICE is doing is sowing a sense of distrust in the community. Only to criminals. Another thing that I saw was, let's watch another couple of videos.
There's some sort of smoke grenade that's been placed inside of that vehicle. Something is smoking. That's dark smoke inside that vehicle. So we very well may be seeing the start of a vehicle fire, and it looks like this thing is...
Spin that as peaceful.
Lighting up, and that's pretty much... police are going to have, presumably, fire crews are going to have to presumably move in and take control of this situation as it gets even more dangerous. Again, this is the intersection of Alondra Boulevard and Atlantic Avenue in Compton, California. Dale's Donuts.
That
big donut on your screen. And this vehicle fire, this fire is taking off. Again, we're seeing this in real time, and we have no idea how this started, why this started. Time will tell.
A far lefty lit it on fire, and it's caught fire and still going.
Ground crews are.
But hey, don't worry. It was mostly peaceful. A rioter injured and at least one Customs and Border Patrol agent after pelting the agent's vehicle with rocks, one of which smashed through the vehicle's windshield and caused a bloody cut on the agent's hand. They're lucky that people weren't, murdered in this whole thing. 4 things to know about the immigration raid protest that roiled LA this weekend. How about the violent rioters and what they did? Okay, so here we go. Everybody here wants to be peaceful, Anna Benedict told LAist. We've been standing here for quite a while and no one is menacing the National Guard. Everyone is just standing up for their own freedom. I don't think it should be an issue for people to stand up for their own freedom, but when that freedom means that you are pelting police cars with stones, rocks, pieces of concrete, you're lighting private property owned by a corporation, Waymo, on fire. You're literally creating dumpster fires, and you're stopping the ability for people to go to work on certain major arterials. You're doing all that kind of thing. Mainstream media is just further digging their own grave, because when they tell you that this isn't a violent riot, and yet they have these images up on the screen of just a city on fire, well, it's only a small portion. Yeah, and CHOP was only a 5-block area in Seattle, and yet 2 black kids were murdered at a Black Lives Matter event. Yeah, and that's why I think Trump pulled the trigger as early as he did, because he learned his lesson on Portland, Minneapolis, Seattle, learned his lesson. He's just, we're going to send the boys in now. Man, I hope the Marines get to go in. That'd be great, right? All right, boys, let's go in. Let's take care of these wieners. Demonstrators attended protests around the city. Men were responding to ICE actions from previous days. Let's be clear, the federal actions were detaining criminal illegals in our country that are supposed to get the boot. But we're going to go ahead and support them anyway. Yeah, right? Trump warned more troops could come. By Sunday morning, around 300 California National Guard troops have been deployed at 3 sites around LA. Good. I say good. The more the merrier. Defense Secretary Pete 𝗥𝗧𝗜𝗍 said in a post on Saturday that the active duty Marines at Camp Pendleton were also on high alert and will also be mobilized if violence continues. Man, if that happens, I've already looked, but I wouldn't mind hopping on a little plane and getting down to LA. LA to Seattle. Seattle to LA is a pretty easy flight. Be fun to be down there for just a long weekend. See what, the mostly peaceful protesting looks like. I'm thinking about that. It's also summer here in Seattle. We're getting some good weather. I got to take advantage. So, priorities. Trump said that he would deploy more troops to more cities. ICE actions sparked protests in multiple cities across the country, including Minneapolis and Chicago. ICE is just simply doing their job. This is all because Joe Biden let 20 million criminal illegals into the country and then just said, all right, guys, disperse throughout the country, disperse throughout the interior. None of this remain in Mexico policy. We're going to parole you to the interior of the United States, and you're going to love it. So are the American people. Well, the American people, not so much. And my evidence there would be, how'd that last election work out for you, Democrats? Yeah, not well. We're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden and his auto pens, Trump said Sunday. Oh, that's so true. Do you think the auto pen accusations will stick? Crazy Joe didn't know what he was doing, so his aides had auto pen sign everything. The reference to an auto pen, okay, we know what that is. This is the first time since the 1960s that the federal government has called up National Guard troops without a governor's consent. Podcaster Newsom looks so helpless. He's just literally standing around going, we're going to sue him. We're going to sue him. And you're left with, why would you even go there? What is that going to accomplish? You've got a dumpster fire of a city happening right now, and you're going to be suing? You're going to sue something in the court system that's going to take years and years and years to work its way through? How about you just get your own city under control? How about that? What about that there? Now, you've got leadership in LA that isn't really leadership. They're talking heads. Local authorities push back on Trump hard. LA Mayor Karen Bass said on All Things Considered on Sunday, coordination with federalized National Guard troops is collaborative at this point, but she was critical of Trump's decision to deploy them. Of course she was, because she won't do anything about anything. Hence, homelessness to the moon. Billions of dollars spent, homeless numbers to the moon. I believe that these raids and now the federalization of troops to come into LA is an international effort to sow chaos. No, the chaos is already there, and you created it by your lack of ability to contain the bad element within your own communities. And Newsom is just as well to blame. He's been doing that for a long time. He's been governor for a long time. She called the city a tinderbox. Well, if LA is a tinderbox, it's because it's one that you've allowed to happen. When you were too busy flirting around in Ghana as your city burned, yeah, it became a tinderbox. I do not want to see civil unrest take place in this city, and I think bringing the National Guard in is provocative. I think it's necessary in order to instill a sense of peace, and in order to instill a sense of order, in order to instill just basic public safety, because clearly podcaster Newsom and Karen Bass, they're not going to authorize their policing forces to drop the hammer on any of these folks. Newsom said on social media that he formally asked Trump to rescind the unlawful deployment Sunday. Well, too bad there, podcaster Newsom, because Trump's going to do what he's going to do, and he already crapped on you the last time you guys met. So We didn't have a problem until Trump got involved. No, you did. You had huge problems, and the media keeps trying to spin it in a different direction, and the rest of the country is watching Los Angeles burn. So if you're okay with that, I'd say just keep going on the road you are. This is a serious breach of state sovereignty, inflaming tensions while pulling resources from where they're actually needed. Nope, that's not true. You've got it backwards, but hey, you've gotten most everything backwards during your career. That's why you have so few actual accomplishments of, what you've done in your, 12 years as governor. Democratic Governors Association issued a statement calling Trump's National Guard deployment an alarming abuse of power. So it's like you've got two literal stories going on. And the last section is it sets the stage for more clashes. Oh yeah, I think we're going to have a bunch of riots. I don't think this is one and done. This isn't one long weekend and done. I think you've set the stage for, by not dropping the hammer on these people. And guess what? Leadership in California isn't going to do that because they always support left and the far lefties, and they're the ones that are basically making these clashes happen. So yeah, as far as more clashes, you betcha you'll have a bunch more. So make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, hit the like button for this video, and I'll see you on the next one because guaranteed we're going to have a next one. Thanks again for being here. We'll catch up soon. Bye for now.